It's no surprise that the U.S. report on U.S. arms being used by Israel is self-contradictory. They're trying to make it seem like they're criticizing the Israeli government for what they're doing in Gaza, while at the same time not having to actually do anything legal against the Israeli government, like stopping all arms or putting sanctions on them for committing war crimes in Gaza with the use of U.S. arms.
A report by the Biden administration on whether Israel's use of US supplied weapons violated international humanitarian law is self contradictory and full of gaps. That's according to two former State Department officials speaking to Reuters on Friday. The 46
I mean, we already know that the Israeli government is violating international laws. They've been doing that since October 7th and long before October 7th when they went into the West Bank and were killing people. Uh, Most of the arms that the Israeli government has is US made.
page report to Congress was released on Friday and was mandated by a national security memorandum Biden signed in February. It does say Israel may have violated international humanitarian law during its military operation in Gaza. But due to the chaos of war, it could not verify specific instances where use of US made weapons might have been involved in alleged breaches. And since Israel has not shared complete
Oops. Well, if the United States wanted to, they could easily find and get this information, but Biden administration doing they can to defend the Israeli government while at the same time trying to regain support for Biden is just lying about everything.
information in those cases, the administration says it still finds Israel's assurances it is using US weapons in accordance with international law credible.
I think it is.
Right, because killing aid workers with US made weaponry is following international law, even though international law says you can kill aid workers.
A self-contradictory report in many ways.
Josh Paul was a director in the State Department's Bureau of Political Military Affairs. He resigned in October in protest over the administration's policy in Gaza.
It does say that it is reasonable to assume that US weapons have been used to commit violations of international humanitarian law, and yet it does not say that Israel has violated international humanitarian law. It does say that Israel has restricted humanitarian assistance into Gaza, and yet it says that currently Israel is not restricting US-funded humanitarian assistance in Gaza, which is an absurd.
So the US is saying it's reasonable to assume the Israeli government has violated international law, but be hard about it and actually say they are. I mean, if you say it's reasonable to assume they're violating international law, you're admitting that the Israeli government is violating international law. And it's obvious. Everybody can see that the Israeli government is preventing aid from getting into Gaza. So to claim that the Israeli government is doing everything it can to do to get aid into Gaza is a big lie.
Absurd thing to say, given that the IDF is at this moment closing and has closed for several days the Rafah crossing point, which is the main entry point for humanitarian assistance. So I think.
And you also got right-wing Israelis that are also preventing aid from getting into Gaza, making up a bunch of BS claims like how the aid is being directly given to Hamas and stuff.
That in some ways the administration and the State Department are trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're trying to be seen to be levying criticism while steering clear of the legal determinations that would bind their hands and potentially lead to restrictions on arms transfers in particular.
The report says individual violations do not necessarily disprove Israel's commitment to international humanitarian law, as long as it takes steps to investigate and hold violators accountable. The report
Yeah, like they held the violators who killed the aid workers responsible and punished them. Oh wait, they didn't do anything whatsoever, just like killed the Israeli hostages. They did nothing about that. Or the IDF that airstruck some hostages in a building. Those IDF members weren't punished, nor are any of the IDF members punished when they commit human rights abuses in the West Bank, the Israeli government has never cared about international law. That's why they're open about violating it, because they know the United States is going to back them up and protect them.
Also listed many credible reports of civilian harm and said Israel didn't at first cooperate with Washington to boost humanitarian assistance to the enclave. But in each instance, it could not point to any clear definitive breaches of the law. Brian Finnegan of the International Crisis Group was a legal advisor to the State Department on the use of military force. He says the Biden administration could have done much more thorough fact-finding if it wanted to.
Presumably, if there was an interest, they could acquire some of this non-public information and fill in the gaps. Going back to the Bush administration, second Bush administration, Secretary Colin Powell made an announcement that Sudan had committed genocide in Darfur. And I would just say in that instance, the U.S. government, unlike here, went out of its way to actually engage in fact-finding this. So the State Department dispatched researchers to Chad to interview refugees about the ongoing atrocities in Darfur, so that the U.S. government can make informed assessments of the facts and apply the law to that. And we have no indication that took place here. There's no indication that the U.S. government tried to interview people in Egypt or elsewhere in the regions, refugees from Gaza.
The find
Well, you gotta realize that when it's the United States or its allies committing war crimes, it's no big deal. I mean, look at the U.S. itself, who has committed many, many war crimes throughout the past. Look at the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, which the United States claim that they're doing it because of WMDs, and just for them to admit that it was all a lie and there were no WMDs, they were committing massive amounts of war crimes, killing innocent civilians, but they were never considered a terrorist, nor was the United States punished for committing war crimes. Um, Anytime it's the United States or its allies committing war crimes, it's never considered a war crime because it's the United States that gets to dictate what's a war crime.
findings in the State Department report risk further souring ties between Israel and the US at a time when the allies are increasingly at odds over Israel's plans to invade Rafah, a decision Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he'll press ahead with. Israel's military is facing backlash with the soaring death toll and the level of devastation in the Gaza Strip, while the US, Israel's largest arms supplier, has recently put on hold a shipment of heavy bunker-busting bombs in a major policy shift.
Yeah, why does the Israeli government need bunker-busting bombs, something that would kill scores of civilians located in Rafah because of how densely packed people are in Rafah at the moment? They don't need bombs, and if they want bombs, they can make it themselves instead of Bibi Netanyahu throwing a fit over Biden not giving him bombs. It is truly pitiful how much the Israeli government demands from the United States without giving anything back.
The Biden administration has said it would review additional arms shipments to Israel, even as it reiterated long-term support for its ally in the Middle East.
I think it's also funny how Bibi expects anything and everything from the United States, even though, like, Biden said, if you do something, we're not going to support you. And when Biden stops supporting the Israeli government, again, he wants to throw a fit, claims that Biden loves Hamas or Hamas loves Biden, trying to make it seem like Biden is like doing evil